Please be seated. Thank you very much. 네, 여러분 안녕하십니까? 월드 하이드로젠 엑스포 2025 리더십 앤 마켓 인사이트 컨퍼런스에 함께해 주신 모든 분들께 진심으로 환영과 감사 인사드립니다. 먼저 제 소개를 올리도록 하겠습니다. 저는 오늘 이 뜻깊은 행사 서해를 맡은 아나운서 박서진이라고 합니다. 반갑습니다. 네, 고맙습니다. 날씨가 무척이나 춥습니다. 이렇게 추워진 날씨를 우리가 느끼면서 연말이 더욱더 다가온 것 같은데요. 이렇게 바쁘신 시기에도 불구하고 오늘 귀한 시간 내셔서 참석해 주신 모든 분들께 다시 한번 깊은 감사의 인사드립니다. 리더십 앤 마켓 인사이트는 글로벌 수소 산업을 이끄는 주요 기관과 그리고 기업이 한자리에 모여 정책 방향, 기술 전략, 그리고 시장 전망을 공유하고 산업 전반의 방향성을 제시하는 자리인데요. 오늘 세션에서는 각국의 에너지 정책 흐름과 수소 경제 확산 전략, 기업의 기술 적용 사례 등을 중심으로 보다 구체적인 인사이트를 전달해 드릴 예정입니다. 다양한 분야의 연사분들이 제시해 주실 전문적인 시각과 경험을 통해 향후 시장 변화에 대한 명확한 이해와 실질적인 해답을 얻어 가시는 시간이 되기를 바라겠습니다. 자, 그럼 지금부터 각국의 산업 전략, 기술 동향, 그리고 시장 전망을 중심으로 명확한 관점과 실제 사례를 제시해 주실 연사분들을 모시고 본 세션 이어가도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 첫 번째 순서 시작해 보겠습니다. 첫 번째 순서는 기조 강연이 준비되어 있는데요. 첫 번째 발표자는 기후에너지환경부 박덕열 수소열산업정책관님께서 준비해 주셨고요. 글로벌 스테이트 오브 플레이 오브 하이드로젠이라는 주제로 발표해 주시겠습니다. 여러분 모두 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
안녕하십니까. 반갑습니다. 기후에너지환경부 수소열산업정책관 박덕열입니다. 먼저 올해 아시아 태평양 지역 최대 규모의 수소 행사로 개최되는 월드 하이드로젠 엑스포 2025의 개최를 축하드립니다. 이 자리에 참석하신 호주, 독일, 일본, 캐나다 등 주요국 정부와 국제기구, 기업인 여러분들께 감사드리며 이번 리더십 앤 마켓 인사이트 행사를 마련해 주신 월드 하이드로젠 엑스포의 조직위원회 관계자 여러분들께도 깊은 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 한국 정부는 올해 10월 기후변화 대응, 에너지, 환경 기능을 통합한 기후에너지 환경부를 새롭게 출범시켰습니다. 이는 기후위기 대응과 지속가능한 에너지 전환을 국가의 핵심 과제로 삼겠다는 강한 의지를 반영한 것입니다. 한국 정부는 재생에너지를 중심으로 한 에너지 대전환을 추진하고 있으며 이를 뒷받침하기 위해 서해, 남해, 동해를 잇는 에너지 고속도로를 구축해 재생에너지의 안정적 공급 기반을 강화해 나갈 계획입니다. 이러한 에너지 전환 정책은 단순한 기술 변화가 아니라 산업 경제 구조를 점진적으로 탄소 중립으로 전환하는 과정입니다. 탄소 중립을 실현하기 위해서는 재생에너지 확대뿐만이 아니라 그 에너지를 저장, 운반할 수 있는 효율적인 수단이 필요합니다. 재생에너지를 통해 생산된 전기는 장기 저장이나 원거리 운송에는 한계가 있습니다. 이 한계를 보완할 수 있는 것이 바로 수소에너지입니다. 수소는 재생에너지 전력을 장기간 저장할 수 있고 지역 간, 국가 간 이동을 통해 수급 불균형을 해소할 수 있는 장점이 있습니다. 또한 철강, 석유화학, 시멘트와 같은 난감축 산업 분야에서 온실가스 감축을 위한 원료나 연료로 사용될 수 있는 다재다능한 에너지원입니다. 그러나 수소 경제로의 전환은 결코 쉬운 과제가 아닙니다. 수소 생산, 저장, 운송, 활용 등 전 단계의 인프라 구축에는 오랜 시간과 많은 투자가 필요합니다. 이를 극복하기 위해 전 세계 기업인들은 수소 생산과 운송 효율을 높이기 위해 수전해 기술, 탄소 포집과 저장, 또 액화 수소 등 기술 개발에 박차를 가하고 있으며 각국 정부 역시 보조금, 세제 혜택 등을 통해 수소 경제 생태계 조성을 뒷받침하고 있습니다. 이에 따른 고무적인 통계도 나타나고 있습니다. 국제에너지기구의 글로벌 하이드로젠 리뷰 2025에 따르면 저탄소 수소 생산 프로젝트에 대한 투자는 2022년 11억 달러에서 24년 43억 달러로 꾸준히 증가하고 있으며 저탄소 수소 시장이 초기 단계에서 성숙 단계로 진입하고 있다고 평가하고 있습니다. 한국 정부는 지난달 브라질 벨랭에서 열린 COP30에서 2035 국가 온실가스 감축 목표를 2018년 대비 53%에서 61%까지 감축하는 것으로 공식 발표했습니다. 앞으로 대한민국은 2035 NDC 수립의 후속 조치로 녹색산업 육성 전략인 KGX를 내년 상반기까지 수립하여 산업 전반의 녹색화와 성장 지향형 경제 전환을 뒷받침할 계획입니다. 이 과정에서 수소는 수소 환원제철, 수소 발전 등 산업 혁신의 에너지원이자 수소차 보급을 통한 수송 부문 탈탄소화를 가속화하는 주요 동력으로서 역할을 수행할 것입니다. 한국은 2020년에 세계 최초로 수소법을 제정한 이후 국가 수소경제 이행 기본계획을 수립하는 등 수소경제 생태계 조성을 적극 추진해 나가고 있습니다. 특히 수소 모빌리티 분야에서는 전 세계를 선도 중으로 25년 9월 기준 수소차가 4만 대 이상 보급되었으며 그중 수소버스가 전국에 2,500여 대 운행되고 있는 성과를 보이고 있습니다. 앞으로도 한국 정부는 수소 생산, 유통, 활용 등 수소 생태계 전반을 확대하기 위한 다각도의 노력을 기울일 예정입니다. 수전의 핵심 부품 R&D 지원을 확대하고 청정수소 실증, 시범 사업을 통해 생산 역량을 강화하는 한편 국내외 청정수소가 우리나라에 원활히 공급될 수 있도록 수소사업법 제정 등을 추진하여 국내 인프라 구축을 신속히 지원해 나갈 것입니다. 내년부터는 수소 환원제철, 실증 사업 등을 추진해서 철강 등 난감축 산업 부분의 수소 수요를 지속 창출하고 수소 상용차 중심의 수소 모빌리티 보급을 확대해 나갈 계획입니다. 이에 더해 대규모 시설 투자와 R&D 세액 공제를 통한 투자 환경 조성, 수소 산업이 집적화된 수소 특화단지 조성과 수소 청정수소 인증제, 수소 발전 입찰 시장 등 제도적 지원을 통해 산업 생태계를 확립해 나갈 것입니다. 참석자 여러분, 수소는 본질적으로 국제 협력이 필수적인 에너지입니다. 어느 한 나라나 한 기업의 노력만으로 수소 경제에 의미 있는 진전을 이루기 어렵습니다. 청정수소 인증제의 국제 정합석 확보, 안정적인 청정수소 공급망 구축, 그리고 수소 산업의 금융 투자 활성화, 수전해 등 핵심 기술의 실증, 사업화와 표준화 등 수소 정책과 산업, 기술의 모든 영역에서 전 세계가 긴밀히 연결되고 협력해야 합니다. 이러한 협력은 다양한 정부와 기업, 국제기구가 함께 할수록 더욱 빠르고 의미 있는 성과를 만들 수 있습니다. 오늘 월드 하이드로젠 엑스포 행사를 계기로 이러한 논의가 더욱 확장되기를 기대합니다. 대한민국은 든든한 파트너로서 글로벌 수소 경제의 발전을 위해 국제사회와 긴밀히 협력해 나가겠습니다. 참석자 여러분, 탄소 중립은 우리나라의 중요한 전략적 목표입니다. 한국 정부는 우리나라 에너지 시스템을 청정 에너지 기반으로 전환하고 그 과정에서 얻은 경험과 모범 사례를 전 세계에 공유하여 전 세계의 탈탄소 혁신과 지속 가능한 발전에 기여해 나가겠습니다. 오늘 귀중한 자리에 초대해 주신 모든 분께 감사드리며 여러분의 성공과 건강을 기원합니다. 감사합니다.
네, 소중한 발표 감사드립니다. 정책관님. 네, 다재다능한 수소의 무한한 가능성 그리고 현재 직면하고 있는 도전 과제들에 대해서 말씀해 주셨는데요. 이를 위한 운송 효율 그리고 생산성 확대를 위해서 정부의 다층적인 노력이 어떻게 이루어지고 있는지에 대해서 자세히 설명해 주셨습니다. 네, 다시 한번 좋은 발표해 주신 정책관님께 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 고맙습니다. 이어서 두 번째 기조 강연입니다. 두 번째 강연은 국제표준화기구 조성환 회장님께서 Clean Hydrogen Standardization Strategy and Recommendation을 주제로 발표해 주시겠습니다. 여러분 모두 뜨거운 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다. 이렇게 해서 저희가 두 번째 기조 발표 만나봤는데요. 저탄소 전환에 있어서 아주 핵심적인 역할을 하는 청정수소의 표준화 전략에 대해서 자세히 말씀해 주셨습니다. 다시 한번 수고해 주신 조성환 회장님께 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 이어서는 월드 하이드로젠 엑스포 2025의 주요 아젠다를 보다 심층적으로 다루는 리더십 인사이트 세션을 진행해 보도록 하겠습니다. 수소 산업의 정책 방향, 기술 적용 전략, 그리고 글로벌 시장 변화를 다양한 관점에서 살펴볼 순서인데요. 리더십 인사이트의 첫 번째 발표는 하이드로젠 램프업 and Energy Research Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy의 Deputy Director General이신 악셀 브린님께서 독일의 수소 경제 현황과 그리고 정책 방향에 대해서 발표해 주시겠습니다. 여러분 모두 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having me today. I will lead you, after you had heard from President Cho this very interesting international perspective, I will lead you more to the national issues of Germany and hydrogen policy. I will talk about the situation of the production of the infrastructure in Germany, about maybe some new policy ideas and instruments, but then coming back again to the international sector, because this plays a big role in the German hydrogen policy as well, as you will see. I start with the German hydrogen strategy, which was adopted in 2020 already and updated in 2023. And in general, even though there are more round balls which you see here, there are five pillars which are crucial for the German strategy, and I think it's not so much different than what is done in other countries, such as Korea, for example. So, number one is the hydrogen production. We want, or the hydrogen and imports as well. So we need, of course, hydrogen in the system, either by national production or by imports. The second issue is the infrastructure and supply. This is the pipelines on the one hand, but also, for example, the storage sites, which are very important to have the real impact and to use the hydrogen. So the third sector is the demand side, and as we see, it's maybe the most important part of the hydrogen ramp up, because without demand, it doesn't help if we have production and infrastructure in place. The demand drives the market. So in Germany, we see several sectors. One is the industry. Steel, chemicals, but also the transport industry. Here's a little bit different to the Korean side, that we are not focusing so much on the private transport sector, more on trucks and maybe the maritime and the air sector, of course. But also for power plants, and the use of hydrogen will be envisaged because it's a good way to store energy and use hydrogen instead of gas. So that's the third pillar, and then we have, of course, the policy pillars of certification and approval, and this is what Mr. President Cho also talked about. I think this is the basis for building a market, that we have standards, that we have certification, that we have labels, and therefore we need both international and national regulation. And then last but not least, there is the field of research, innovation and education, very important, and so there are different areas where we focus, but the hydrogen area is one which is in the focus in Germany. Yes. So I'm coming now to the first field of the production in Germany, and as you see, it's growing from a very low level. We thought we would be faster with our production ramp up. We had a goal of 10 gigawatt production in Germany by 2030. At the moment, we are more or less at 170 megawatt. So you see there's a long way to go. We have to, now I have to calculate, take this number by 50 times, and then we are still not at the 10 gigawatts. But on the other hand, you see there's a going trend, and so we'll see where we land in 2030, but we think that this number is not realistic anymore, but we still are confident that this upward trend will continue. For that, we also support the production of electrolyzers. There used to be a program called IPCEI, Important Projects of Common European Interest, where we funded around 10 projects, 10 electrolyzer projects in Germany, to have, you know, like support of the early movers. Now let me come to the infrastructure. As I said, this is interesting in Germany. We have already planned a so-called core network, hydrogen core network, which is the backbone for Germany's H2 infrastructure. You see Germany, and the green lines are the pipelines which are planned at least. So we had the different pipeline operators asked to make a proposal for their plans until 2032, and this is the proposal, and this was last year approved by the network agency in Germany. So what you see here is the official plan, and these are only kind of the, as I said, the backbone pipelines. More pipelines for the distribution areas are to come. The interesting thing is that we try to support this by a so-called amortization account. That works in a way that you don't have to pay. If you use those pipelines in the first years, the users would have to pay a real high amount of tariffs because there are not so many. So what we say is you can keep this tariff very low, and the operators will get compensated by a state fund or a state loan over 30 years. And once there's enough hydrogen in the system and the tariffs will get higher, or there will be more tariffs, then the operators have to pay back this loan to the state. So that's the so-called amortization fund, and I think it's a good idea to start infrastructure in a situation. We always talk about the hen and egg situation, in a situation where you don't have the demand as big as it should be, but still need a huge system of pipelines. Now I come to the new government. We had an election as well as in Korea last year, and have a new government since May this year. And yeah, the outcome, and we had a monitoring process with regard to the entire energy transition. And the outcome was that, first of all, yeah, it has been said what I said before, that the demand will be not as high as expected. But, and this is important, that we still have, that we still need hydrogen in the system, and that we're still very much committed to the hydrogen ramp up. But we need a more flexible approach. Not only, you know, we will not have this stable or production goal, but we'll see that the infrastructure, the production and demand go hand in hand, step in step, coordinated, and that there will be maybe a more flexible approach which also saves a bit of money. And another thing that is quite important is that we need to bring down the costs, the bureaucracy costs, the regulatory costs, which then helps to lower the price gap in the hydrogen market. So what are the instruments the new and the old governments are talking about? And in general, I can say that there are two ways to support the hydrogen market in a basic way. One is subsidies, paying money to the companies. The other one is by creating markets, yeah, by raising the demand. With regard to subsidies, we had a lot of instruments, which is on the slide as well. There's the IPSI I've talked about, and which not only refers to the electrolyzers, but also to infrastructure and off-takers. We had an auction system by the European Hydrogen Bank, where the German government also contributed funds to. We have the contracts for difference, which is a system where industries can apply for the amount which is above the amount they have to pay for their traditional fossil fuel production. And then there's the H2 Global thing, where we have a double auction system and buying hydrogen from other countries around the world in order to have supply for German users. Then on the other hand, there's the idea to create demand by lead markets. So the basic instrument, which you probably know, is the European emission trading system. By raising the price of CO2, it will be more attractive to invest in hydrogen and other clean technologies. But unfortunately, it's not enough. So we also have quotas on the European level from the Renewable Energy Directive, quotas on the transport sector, for example, which has been or is in the stage of being transposed in Germany at the moment. We also have a quota, a European quota, on the use of green hydrogen in the industry. It's 42% by 2030, which is very ambitious, and we will see how Germany and other countries will implement this this rule. Also, we need, I think, to create lead markets on a voluntary basis, especially also on the international level, because a lead market only works when you have a level playing field. You know, when one country, you know, asks to buy products, green products, and the prices are 10% or 20% higher than the competitive products in other countries, those don't have a chance on the market. So it's really the aim of the German government to create international, European and international lead markets. Therefore, we have initiated the the Climate Club, and Korea is participating as well, and we hope to have some success on this front. So, but last but not least, I come to the international part, as I promised. Germany, as I said, is reliant on imports of hydrogen. We will only, the estimates are, will have, can cover our demand by 30% with national produced hydrogen. Maybe that's also a similarity to Korea. So we have to see that we get imports from other countries. So we are very active. What you see here are different countries where we either engage in concrete projects or where we have energy partnerships or even hydrogen partnerships, such as we do with Korea. And as I said, we see both shipping of hydrogen, or rather than ammonia or derivatives to Germany, but also, and this might take a bit longer, we have these import corridors via pipeline. And these are the arrows you see in the European part. So we have a southern corridor from Italy, we have a southwestern corridor from the Iberian island, we have a northern corridor from Norway, Denmark and other countries, and this is all planned. This is not there yet, it's important, and we are in negotiations with these countries, and we will see, you know, that there's a win-win situation for those countries to sell the hydrogen and for us to buy hydrogen at a reasonable price and to establish these pipelines. The timeline for the pipelines are in the early 30s. And as I said, this is all planning, and we are engaged in very intense discussions with our neighboring countries. Same as with the other countries where, you know, rather shipping agreements are realistic. So with that, I'm stopping my presentation, and thank you very much for the attention.
And thank you so much for sharing your insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
네, 좋은 발표 감사합니다. 네, 독일에서의 수소 현황, 제품별 산업, 인프라, 교통 다양한 분야에서의 수소 현황에 대해서 알 수 있었고요. 또 독일 정부의 H2 지원 방향에 대해서도 아주 자세히 말씀해 주셨습니다. 네, 이렇게 해서 독일 사례를 살펴봤는데요. 다음으로는 일본의 사례도 한번 살펴보도록 하겠습니다. 네, 다음 발표는 Embassy of Japan in the Republic of Korea의 참사관이신 마사히로 타치바다님께서 일본의 수소 경제, 현황과 그리고 정책 방향이라는 주제로 발표 진행해 주시겠습니다. 여러분 모두 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
So much for your kind introduction, and I also thanks to the host of the conference to kindly extend an invitation to me to this very important and interesting conference. Again, my name is Masahiro Tachibana. I'm external counselor and also in the commercial attaché working at the Japan Embassy here in South Korea. So I'm speaking today. As cited here, the Japan's policy, the hydrogen. So actually I'm from the embassy, but effectively I'm speaking on behalf of the government of Japan, specifically behalf of the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, because that ministry is exactly the one who is essentially in charge of the formulating, implementing all policy measures on hydrogen in Japan. Okay, I'd like to start with a basic idea underlying their principle for formulating the landscape of the hydrogen economy. And this is all about the GX strategy. For the first one, the right pillar, we actually established the 3 goals under their GX strategy. The first one is their economic security, number 1. The second one is their economic growth. The third one is their carbon neutral. There must be, are different pathway to reach these 3 goals. And finally, insurance cooperation in this field, very important, as previous speaker said. And now coming to the substance of my presentation, the main theme of today. We actually have achieved several milestones towards the establishing the truly hydrogen ecosystem society in Japan. The first step we made is actually we formulated first of its sort in the area of hydrogen national economy. It's hydrogen national strategy, which took place in 2017, so a very long time ago. Perhaps this is one of the first cases, and which was updated one time though, and 2 years ago, so 2023. So we are new, we are having the new one. The second milestone we have achieved is that we established a Green Innovation Fund. And this fund is actually financed by their issuing special national bonds, as we call it, GX transition bond. We actually issuing such a special national bond each year at the value of 2 trillion yen. And we are expecting continue such exercise for up to 10 years. So in total, at the end of the day, the sequences of the issuing national bond, we're going to have 20 trillion Japanese yen in my cash. Okay. So that will be used, and the one product of such fund will be used, obviously, for the hydrogen economy. And we also have their legal framework for implementing a policy measure on the hydrogen ecosystem. That is so-called the Hydrogen Society Promotion Act in 2024, just last year. And also like to highlight here in the slide that we have actually 2 targets. The first one is market volume. It's a see at the bottom of the slide. It's targeted market volume hydrogen transaction in the market. So currently we have around 2 million ton hydrogen, and we expect to see the number increase to around 3 million ton by 2030, 12 million ton 2040, and finally 20 million ton by 2050. This number is somehow aligned with our national target about NEDC. So 2050, we're targeting at reach carbon neutral. So that number, market volume number, is very crucial to achieve that NEDC target. And also set the different target is that it's market price. Actually, it's not written here, but some challenge in already. We are expecting to see the market transaction price of hydrogen decreased to the 30 yen per cubic meter by 2030. And we're also looking at the further ambitious target, the price level of 20 Japanese yen by 2050. So 20 yen per cubic meter is almost equivalent to the current price level of alternative fossil fuel. So typically it's natural gas and coal. Now coming to the individual policy measure we have been implementing. The first one, as we call it, it's price gap support mechanism. As previous speaker highlighted, the price is really key issue we have tackled. And there is huge price gap between hydrogen and alternative fossil fuel. So natural gas car is much cheaper than hydrogen at this moment. So we decided to provide a subsidy. to fill the gap. And hydrogen supplier, in turn, would need to file commitment to the government. Commitment of the long-term supply of hydrogen into Japan's market. Actually, we are in the position to continue giving subsidy to the hydrogen supplier for up to the 15 years. So hydrogen supplier would need to supply, continuously need to supply hydrogen for 15 years, but they also need to extend such a supplying period by 10 years. So in total, 25 years commitment period for the hydrogen supply in Japan. And actually, we have their budget. We have already secured the budget for the operating this policy measure. We have the total 3 trillion Japanese yen in the budget for this program. And there's another support program that is in operation in Japan that is called the HAB Development Program. Under this program, we are targeting at the establishment of the essential infrastructure to make it hydrogen economy as operational in Japan. So this almost the same manner. So we are providing subsidy for the developer of such an infrastructure like a pipeline and storage of hydrogen. Basically, we're providing half cost of a total capex that are needed to establish such an essential facility. And here is the current status, how much we progress for these 2 policy measures for the supporting, promoting the hydrogen economy ecosystem in Japan. For the first one, price gap mechanism, we actually closed the bidding process, which was in last March this year. And at the end of the day, we had 27 total applications for applying for such a price gap support measure. And we are now in the process of the reviewing and assessing each individual cases of the application. We actually determined 2 cases should go ahead. So 2 projects were awarded. And for the second one, HAB Development Program, we have yet to come to the final decision to announce the first batch of such awarded project, but hopefully soon to come to the final decision process. And this is kind of a rolling-based determination, so decision. So second batch, third batch, yeah. And practically, that's like society we would be continuing until the early next year. And here is their kind of brief information regarding their one of the first batch of the awarded project for the price gap support program. The point is here that actually there's so many reasons and criteria we have to look at and carefully review for the picking up what is the awarded project. But the point is here that the first batch project is here that the way of the generation of hydrogen, because of that generation process is powered by the green energy, so green hydrogen. Specifically, it's powered by the onshore wind power. And to be generated, hydrogen will be used for the produce iron and steel industry. So hard to abate. One of the really heavily impacted. So hard to abate industry sector. Okay, and this is the second case of the first batch of the awarded project for the price gap mechanism. The interesting point here is that it does not adapt the normal way of generating hydrogen. It's actually used the kind of different, kind of very interesting manner approaching for the generating hydrogen. That is gasification of solid-based material. In this case, it's waste plastic and waste cloth. So by using that technology, this project is going to use that to be generated hydrogen to produce further material, raw material for the textile. So this is kind of the total ecosystemic cycle of the value chain, supply chain of the textile. Now I'd like to focus on the sector-specific policy measure that are adopted and implemented in Japan. Mobility is perhaps the most outstanding sector we'd like to highlight here. I'm not to say that mobility is the largest volume market in Japan of the hydrogen, but I rather say that the mobility sector is really key and most progressed. And exactly this area is where we first started our efforts in the hydrogen economy. So what are you going to do? What I'm doing here, we're looking at the role and responsibility of local government, because they are key actor to implement and initiate, implement of their initiative activity associated with their hydrogen economies, ecosystem in mobility sector. Particularly, we are looking at the real core infrastructure in the mobility in certain area, that is the hydrogen refueling station. So actually for that one, we selected 5 regions, specific region, and including Tokyo, Kanagawa, and Fukushima, Hyogo, Aichi, and Fukuoka. So these 5 regions actually chosen. They actually commit to do some very ambitious activity for achieving their ecosystem with hydrogen within this region. And in turn, we provide a subsidy to HLS. Actually, 3 different types of subsidy we are providing to that activity. The first one is we are providing subsidy up to covering up to 3/4 of the total price gap between hydrogen and diesel fuel. So this is kind of similar to their price gap support, but from the different sources of money and a different program. And we're also giving subsidy to their CAPEX and OPEX for the HLS. It's poised to cover their 2/3 the total cost, CAPEX, OPEX, for the HLS within this region. Okay. Maybe just key information I'd like to share with you in this field that and at the end of the last March this year, we have the around 8,800 fuel cell vehicle in the market in Japan, and we have the 161 HLS in total in Japan. So we are looking to increase that number by doing that program. Okay, finally, come to the international initiative. As I said, and also that was echoed by the previous speaker, that international cooperation is key to succeed in achieving the real hydrogen economy, hydrogen ecosystem across the world. So we actually led this initiative, that is Hydrogen Energy Minister Meeting. And this is actually world first trial of the organized minister level meeting on focusing on the hydrogen agenda. The first such minister meeting took place in 2018, and we annually organized that minister meeting in Japan, basically. And so last round of such a minister meeting took place this September, so it's over. And as outcome of that minister meeting for the last round, we issued chair summary. I'm not go into detail of that, but if you're interested, just let me know. And it's not written here, but we're having the bilateral efforts, bilateral international cooperation. And for that one, we are having several channels particularly policy dialogue with different partners of the world. That also include the policy dialogue with Korea. So I hope that help. We really looking forward to further deepening the international cooperation in the field of the hydrogen economy. Right, I think this is the last slide. Yeah, right, with that, I'm going to stop here. Thanks so much for kind attention. 감사합니다.
Thank you so much. 고맙습니다. 네, 이렇게 해서 일본 정부가 기울이고 있는 이 수소 경제를 위한 전략 그리고 앞으로의 방향성에 대해서 자세히 발표해 주셨습니다. 네, 다음으로는 Embassy of Canada to the Republic of Korea의 Senior Economic Officer이신 써니 park님께서 캐나다의 수소 경제 현황과 그리고 정책 방향에 대해서 발표해 주시겠습니다. 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here to speak on Canada's hydrogen strategy. My name is Sunny Park, and I serve as Senior Economic Officer at the Canadian Embassy in Korea. And I'm also representing Natural Resources Canada. For those of you who are not familiar with Natural Resources Canada, in short, we call it NRCan. It's Canada's federal ministry responsible for the sustainable development and the use of Canada's natural resources and energy, ensuring that our energy and mineral sectors remain globally competitive and sustainable. So in my role at the embassy and also at the Natural Resources Canada, I cover a comprehensive energy and natural resources profile that actually ranges from the traditional energy, oil and gas, to new and renewable energy, and clean fuels like hydrogens and nuclear, and also the critical mineral sector. So on behalf of my colleagues at Natural Resources Canada, I'm honored to deliver the presentation today to share our Canada's vision for the low carbon future. So let's begin by looking at the context driving the global shift. The global energy landscape is undergoing a significant change. The shift has elevated energy and mineral security from a background consideration to a core strategic priority for the government and for the industry as well. The recent disruptions have shown that access to reliable fuel, critical minerals, and the resilient supply chain is not only an economic concern, but actually increasingly a geopolitical issue. Countries are navigating two parallel imperatives. First, the urgent need to secure affordable energy to support economic stability and growth. And second, the need to meet net zero commitment and adapt to evolving climate changes, policies, carbon standards, and trade expectations. This dual pressure is shaping new patterns of energy corporations. We see this clearly in the Indo-Pacific area, and including countries like Korea and Japan. These countries heavily rely on imported energy and have limited space to expand domestic renewables and are sensitive to price and also to supply volatility. As a result, they are pursuing a balanced approach, electrifying where it is efficient, expanding nuclear where it's feasible, and incorporating clean molecules such as hydrogen, where electrification alone cannot meet industrial and the system needs. And this is where Canada plays a big role and where Canada's opportunity shines. Our strength includes a stable policy environment, strong environmental and regulatory systems, and alignment with partners on transparency, standards, and also on emissions integrity. We are also bringing a deep resource capacity, established expertise in carbon management, and growing capability in clean fuels and critical minerals. So looking ahead, Canada is positioning itself to support the Indo-Pacific region in its transition to a low-carbon footprint using the clean energy. To tackle this opportunity head-on, Canada initially published our first hydrogen strategy in December 2020. The strategy is our national commitment to build a robust, competitive, and globally connected hydrogen economy. Last year, our government, Canada, released its first progress report on the strategy. The report takes stock of what has happened since its initial release, summarizing major project announcements, policy developments, and early implementation activities across the country. The report also describes how the hydrogen ecosystem is evolving across the full value chain, including production pathways, infrastructure, and emerging applications. Looking ahead, the report outlines forecasts for hydrogen's contribution to Canada's net zero objective by 2050, based on current investments, technology pathways, and anticipated demand. The progress report concludes with roadmap of the next steps to guide continued collaboration, investments, and policy alignment as the sector moves from early development to scale, which Canada continues to advance through ongoing policy work, project development, and collaboration with both industry and partners. So the full progress report is actually available in our ministry, the Natural Resources Canada's website. And this is a very good example and is a crucial document that ensures that our policy, government policy, keeps pace with the innovation. This map here visually demonstrates the significant growth that we're seeing across the entire the Canadian hydrogen value chain. So the low carbon hydrogen production projects have been announced across the country, representing an expression of interest of over $100 billion in potential investments dedicated to building out this clean energy opportunity. The cluster bubbles that you see here are the production facilities, with the green representing low carbon production like electrolysis, and the blue and black representing carbon intensive or gas-based production, many planned to include the carbon capture and storage. You can also see the icons here for the end-use application projects. Pilot projects are underway, showcasing Canadian ingenuity and demonstrating how hydrogen can help fuel our trucks, buses, and also the trains, help decarbonize our industry, or helping our businesses and homes to heat with the hydrogen. Crucially, hydrogen hubs are forming to match low carbon hydrogen supply with the demand, such as the Edmonton in Alberta, Vancouver in British Columbia, and also central British Columbia, and also our southern Ontario. This activity is backed by strong regional leadership. Provinces are complementing Canada's federal hydrogen strategy with their own provincial strategies and leading development of provincial funding programs, policy, and supportive measures. So the 6 provinces so far, which includes the British Columbia, Alberta, Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, have now developed their own hydrogen strategies, action plans, or roadmaps, showing that the breadth of cooperation between different governments. And this slide actually focuses on our west side, the Western Canadian hydrogen value proposition, which is uniquely positioned for our export to the Indo-Pacific region. So Western Canada, especially our Alberta and British Columbia, offers compelling world-leading advantage. This includes the feedstock advantage, access to cost-friendly natural gas and electricity feedstock, crucial for scalable and low-cost production. Second, ESG and credibility. Our commitment to high ESG standards and strong regulatory credibility means that our partners in the foreign countries, international, can invest with confidence. Third, supply chain advantage. We offer a shorter shipping time to our major, the Asian markets compared to our key competitors like the US Gulf Coast or Qatar. The map on the side highlights the black line highlights the potential, the critical rail corridor from the Edmonton in Alberta to our Prince Rupert in the British Columbia. The technology leadership. Our value proposition extends beyond production. We have established fuel cell leadership, testing capacity, and a skilled workforce with decades of the sector experience. Alberta is our major hub for low-carbon hydrogen export production. We are already have 2 active low-carbon ammonia projects underway, representing over 8 Canadian billions of dollars of potential investments. Alberta is also working on developing infrastructure, including the projects like Alberta Hydrogen Hub, which aims to create a network of production, storage, and transportation within the province. While the initial production projects are advancing rapidly, the next critical phase of the development is focusing on building a large-scale infrastructure and actually the pathways needed to connect the inland production to our coastal export facilities to diversify our trade markets. The development of hydrogen pipeline infrastructure is a crucial component of Canada's strategy to become a leading exporter. And as a project evolves, Canada will likely expand its network of pipelines, which could include dedicated hydrogen transportation across the country. So to ensure the competitiveness of our projects and attract global investment, the Canadian government, our federal government, has put in place robust financial tools through powerful tax incentives and a strategic direct financing. So the investment tax credits, our marquee policy instruments, are designed to significantly lower the upfront capital cost for project developers, making Canadian hydrogen immediately more attractive. The clean hydrogen investment tax credit is about from 15 to 40% refundable tax credit of eligible project cost. The percentage scale depending on the project's carbon intensity, directly incentivizing the lowest emission hydrogen production possible. Furthermore, we have recently announced the budget plan, Budget 2025, expanded the availability of this investment tax credits to include methane pyrolysis, broadening the scope of eligible low-carbon production pathways. We also have and offer the CCUS investment tax credit, which is also extended to 2035 in our Budget 2025 to support carbon management. So 60% for eligible capture equipment used in direct air capture projects, 50% for all other eligible capture equipment, and 37.5% for eligible transportation, storage, and use equipment. In addition, there's a 15% refundable tax credit for the clean electricity investment tax credit and clean technology manufacturing. And clean technology investment tax credits offer 30% refundable tax credit. These are critical for entire hydrogen supply chain, from producing the green electricity to manufacturing the electrolyzers. And also to highlight some of our important organizations, the Canada Growth Fund acts as a strategic investor, offering potential equity financing and investments to support the development of crucial domestic and end-use projects. By supporting domestic demand and providing certainty, the Canada Growth Fund helps de-risk the initial stage of entire hydrogen value chain. EDC, our Export Development Canada, is mandated to support Canadian exporters. They are able to provide credit and debt financing, specifically for export projects. So for international investors, EDC helps de-risk development of major export projects, acting as a crucial bridge to the global market. The Canada Infrastructure Bank is essential for solving infrastructure challenges that we have just discussed. It offers potential debt financing for large-scale infrastructure projects and may provide support for the FEED through its project acceleration program. This function, which was actually expanded or recently announced the budget 2025, directly addresses the need for new export pathways like pipelines and the port terminals. Ultimately, the overarching goal of these policies is to achieve the alignment of production and demand incentives. And this holistic approach is essential for establishing the stable, long-term international hydrogen corridors that will connect Canadian production directly with the global demand, particularly with our allies and partners in the Indo-Pac region. This slide highlights some of the recent collaboration that we had between Canada and Korea in hydrogen space. It shows how engagement have been building across different parts of the value chain. And we've seen activities in the transportation with the BC pilot hydrogen truck project with H-Tech in Vancouver, or the Edmonton Global in the Western Canada Hydrogen Corridor Initiative. This demonstrates early deployment and real-world testing, and that often involves the Korea's high-tech technology. We are also seeing institutional partnerships take place. For instance, in 2024, new memoranda of understanding were signed between Ulsan Free Economic Zone Authority and Alberta-based organizations, reflecting mutual interests in long-term collaboration. And most recently, the work has begun to explore export pathways, including the MOU at the Port of Prince Rupert and BC, focused on future hydrogen as ammonia shipment to Korea. Overall, these examples show early but expanding activities, spanning technology deployment, investments, regional partnership, and planning for the future trade. So in summary, Canada's hydrogen opportunity is a confluence of stable resources, high ESG standards, a clear national strategy, and a powerful financial toolkit to support the investment. Canada is ready to secure a long-term and low-carbon hydrogen supplier to the world, and specifically to help our friends in the Indo-Pacific region to meet their net zero and energy security goals. Canada believes that the combination of our natural advantages and the Western Canada and the decisive incentives, particularly our investment tax credits and the strategic financing from organizations like Canada Growth Fund and Canada Infrastructure Bank, make Canada one of the most compelling places to invest in hydrogen economy today. So that was my last slide, and thank you. We, Canada, very much look forward to partnering with our allies like Korea on this journey. Thank you. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much for the thorough explanation. 네, 고맙습니다. 캐나다의 지정학적인 이유에서 에너지 안보의 중요성이 정부의 주요 과제라고 말씀해 주셨는데요. 또 다양한 캐나다 정부의 수소 전략에 대해서 공유해 주셨습니다. 네, 이어지는 다음 순서로는 NSW 거버먼트의 에너지부 장관님이신 페니 샤먼님께서 Fueling the Transition to a Net Zero Future라는 주제로 발표를 진행해 주시겠습니다. 여러분 모두 큰 박수로 환영해 주시면 고맙겠습니다.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much for inviting me to join the World Hydrogen Expo 2025. And thanks for the warm welcome and the many people that I've been able to meet in the short time I've been here. I want to acknowledge everyone who has the shared commitment to building a cleaner, more sustainable future. New South Wales and the Republic of Korea share a deep and enduring relationship. And listening to Minister Kim this morning, it reinforced how important that relationship is, but also how much of our goals align together. It also reinforced to me that none of us can do this alone. Climate change is a global challenge that demands global solutions. No country, no region can achieve net zero or carbon neutrality alone. Strong international partnerships are essential for the transition. Partnerships like the partnerships that New South Wales has with Korea and other trusted partners are essential to accelerate the transition to clean energy. Korea has long been one of Australia's most important trading partners. In fact, Korea is in the top 5 export markets for our state. Coal has been and will continue to be a fundamental part of that trading relationship. Coal is our largest export to Korea, and this makes a large contribution to our local economy. But while we know that coal remains an important component of the energy security needs for many countries, we also know that things are changing and they must change. As we move towards a net zero world, our relationship is evolving. Both our countries and many others are committed to reaching net zero by 2050. Renewable energy, hydrogen and other renewable fuels are at the heart of this transformation. And the ongoing collaboration between my state, New South Wales, and Korea and other partners, whether through our governments, research institutions or investment, demonstrate our joint commitment to clean energy. In New South Wales, we have legislated ambitious targets: 50% emissions reduction by 2030, 70% by 2035, net zero by 2050. These targets are enshrined in law, and they're important because they're part of our efforts to create a stable policy environment, providing long-term certainty to investors. We also have established a net zero commission to guide our transition. Their role is to provide expert advice to government, hold decision makers to account, and ensure that our communities and our industries are ready to capitalise on a net zero economy. With advice from the Commission and other stakeholders, the New South Wales Government is preparing an updated net zero plan. This plan will focus on how we meet our targets over the next 10 years to 2035. Our progress on renewable energy is not just because we want to save the planet, it's also because we face in New South Wales our coal-fired power stations retiring and coming out of service in the next 15 years. Decarbonising electricity, the largest source of emissions in our state, is our most immediate critical task. But we also see it as our biggest opportunity. Our electricity grid is already undergoing a major transformation. I might pop this one up. At peak time, more than 35% now of New South Wales' electricity comes from renewable sources. At peak times, up to 75% of our grid-scale generation comes from renewables. And we are projecting a significant increase in demand, and we are planning for hydrogen to be part of that. Through our electricity infrastructure roadmap, we are delivering new renewable energy, 12 gigawatts of new energy and 2 gigawatts of long-duration storage, because that's what's necessary for when our coal-fired power stations retire by 2040. But in addition to that, like many other jurisdictions, we have increasing demand. We have pressure from things like data centres, which we welcome the investment for, but needing to deal with increased demand is becoming increasingly critical. For an economy the size of New South Wales, this is a massive investment and a significant undertaking. Importantly, we have world-leading policy frameworks and agencies that are able to deliver this transition. And I'm proud to say, you don't have to take my word for it, New South Wales has been considered by all of our clean energy investors to be the best jurisdiction in Australia to deal with. I'll just take you through. This is the system that we're doing. We have 5 renewable energy zones, our modern day power stations. They're unlocking $32 billion worth of private investment and creating thousands of jobs. These zones offer opportunities for global partners to bring expertise and investment to New South Wales. In the Central West area, our first renewable zone, construction is now underway. In the southwest of New South Wales, we have access rights to the transmission lines, and a number of projects, again, are under construction. In our Hunter Central Coast area, we're about to finalise the next agreement with a key partner to deliver the network. In Australia's largest renewable energy zone in New England, 3 experienced consortia, many of them from a range of different countries, have been shortlisted to deliver the transmission infrastructure. As we deliver this transformation of our energy system, we welcome the deep technical expertise and investment capacity of companies from around the world and from Korea in particular. Just finally wanted to just do a note about the Illawarra Renewable Energy Zone. It looks quite small, but it's actually, it's really an innovation renewable energy zone where we're seeing, and we welcome support from Korean investors who've been backers of the innovation in companies like Hysata, who are manufacturers of ultra-efficient electrolysers. Reaching net zero is not just about clean electricity. Everyone in this room knows this. Heavy industry, shipping and long-haul transport need solutions beyond electrification, and we know that hydrogen is that solution. New South Wales is lucky. We have natural advantages. We have access to land. We have world-class renewable resources. We have a stable political environment. We have skilled workers and strong infrastructure. We also have both levels of government that are absolutely committed to getting this right. While global hydrogen development has faced real challenges, cost pressures, infrastructure constraints and policy uncertainty, in New South Wales we have navigated this and we've maintained steady progress through targeted and consistent support. Our hydrogen strategy is world-leading. It unlocks incentives, and it also includes legislated hydrogen targets under the Renewable Fuels Scheme. It's the only one of its kind in Australia, and we launched this scheme just last week. But we also provide billions of dollars in electricity network concessions. The aim of this is to help reduce the costs of hydrogen, and for the network costs, it reduced them by about 90%. It's not a small concession. We also have grants to support hydrogen hubs in 3 areas, in Moree, Newcastle and Port Kembla. The first hub reached financial investment decision this year. We also have, and we are leveraging off our port, actually I think we've got that there, there we go. That's a better graph. We're also, of course, working with the Port of Newcastle, where we're really wanting to leverage all of the benefits that we have to develop a world-leading hydrogen hub. We're partnering with people like Orica who are on that site. They've received significant funding from our federal government for our Hydrogen Head Start program. The hub will use a 50 megawatt electrolyser powered by renewable electricity to provide renewable hydrogen that will replace natural gas in ammonia production and, of course, cut emissions. Green hydrogen will allow for the industrial transformation to occur at scale and at pace. We have amazing long-running manufacturing businesses in this state, particularly in the Hunter and the Illawarra regions, and green hydrogen is about supporting them to scale and to export into a global decarbonised economy and the hydrogen economy. We're also supporting the Hydrogen Export Hub at the Port of Newcastle, and there are some good relationships that are developing and are developed with, in particular, companies in Korea. This year, representatives of my department, the Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment, Water, participated in two-way dialogue with the Korea Development Institute's knowledge sharing program, which again is really looking into the detail and building out how New South Wales and Korea can build a hydrogen supply chain in Australia. Those visits during the year with government officials mean that we have come away with a very serious appreciation of the scale and the ability for us to collaborate. Korea is taking concrete steps to build the hydrogen economy, and as the many people I've spoken with today would also say, we can't do it alone, but we absolutely can do it together. It's very clear that the Korea's approach is shaped by its energy realities, limited domestic renewable resources, high industrial demand, and a strategic reliance on clean fuel imports to meet its climate goals. On the flip side of that, New South Wales has the ability to produce and to export over time, and that's what we want to do. I want to say on behalf of New South Wales that I appreciate all of the dialogue we have with many of the organisations and partners and countries that come to visit us and that we come to visit as well. We appreciate that feedback, and conferences like today reinforce that by listening to each other we can help solve each other's problems and also help deal with the challenges as we decarbonise our world. This is not just about energy. It's about building a resilient, sustainable economy that benefits all of our regions. New South Wales, as part of Australia, looks forward to the future. The energy transition for us is not a race against each other, it is a race against time. But by working together, we can unlock innovation, create jobs, and deliver a cleaner planet for generations to come. New South Wales is proud to stand alongside Korea and other partners in this journey. Together we can make hydrogen not just a fuel of the future, but a foundation for our future shared prosperity. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. 네, 좋은 발표 감사드립니다. 호주 뉴사우스웨일즈주의 녹색 전환을 위한 재생 에너지들, 현황 그리고 정책들에 대해서 발표해 주셨습니다. 네, 이렇게 해서 리더십 인사이트 세션을 시작한 지 벌써 1시간이 훌쩍 넘었습니다. 지금 시간이 3시 3분입니다. 지금부터 약 15분 정도 휴식을 취하시고 3시 20분 전까지 다시 돌아오셔서 착석해 주시면 고맙겠습니다. 네, 그리고 이후에는 마켓 인사이트 세션으로 이어가도록 하겠습니다. 잠시 후에 뵙겠습니다. 네, 편안한 휴식 시간 보내셨을까요? 앞전 시간에는 저희가 다양한 국가 사례들을 한번 만나봤는데요. 이번 세션에서는 시장 관점을 다루는 마켓 인사이트 세션입니다. 이번 세션에서는 글로벌 수소 시장 규모 변화, 투자 흐름, 산업별 수요 확대 전망 등을 중심으로 보다 현실적인 시장 인사이트를 공유해드릴 예정입니다. 그럼 첫 번째 발표를 소개하면서 마켓 인사이트 세션 시작해 보도록 하겠습니다. 첫 번째 발표는 New Growth Ventures 3M의 프레지던트이신 마크 콥만 님께서 Helping Accelerate the Hydrogen Economy에 대해서 발표해 주시겠습니다. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
It started with this. It was made for these. He thought it could help make this power these. They joined in, which led to this. Now it's more efficient to do all this, to enable all of these. This is just the start, because here, we make things for what's next, now.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Kopman. I'm the Senior Vice President of New Growth Ventures at 3M. At 3M, we collaborate with participants in the energy and hydrogen industry to turn material science into reliable commercial solutions. Across the hydrogen value chain, from production to storage, distribution, and end use, we see that engineered materials designed to help boost efficiency, durability, and safety are the keys to unlocking the ability to scale. We hear the same requests across the industry. Help us meet rising demand with reliable, affordable energy and lower emissions in the process. Today, capital is flowing into energy, but the bar is getting higher. Deliver reliable, affordable energy in molecules versus electrons, all while lowering emissions. Electrification will carry a lot of the load, but not all. The near-term play is squeezing more from existing assets and adding low-carbon hydrogen where it makes operational and economic sense, not just as energy carrier, but also as chemical reactant. Hydrogen fits that gap in heavy industry and long haul when it meets cost and reliability thresholds. So where does hydrogen make the biggest dent? The answer is the hard to decarbonize industrial sectors. Chemicals, ammonia, and methanol run on hydrogen. Swapping in low carbon hydrogen cleans up what we already make. Refineries, lots of on-site hydrogen already. Replacing gray hydrogen is a practical drop-in step. Steel, the big swing. Use hydrogen as a reductant and move away from the blast furnace model, starting with blends and scaling up. Heavy-duty transport. Hydrogen keeps freight moving where batteries struggle. Long range, fast refueling, and familiar duty cycles. Frontier work like dry methane reforming shows how hydrogen plus carbon management can open up new pathways. Bottom line, hydrogen isn't the only tool, but in these sectors is indispensable, and our job is to make it practical and reliable. So what's holding us back? We've all heard the joke, hydrogen is the technology of the future and always will be. It's felt that way for years, but if you take a look at wind, solar, and EVs, they were science projects until costs fell and scale happened. The learning curve for hydrogen production is about 15%. So with every doubling of capacity, the costs will reduce by 15%, which is steep for industrial installations. Hydrogen is crossing the same bridge. Projects are moving from pilots to steel in the ground, and economics are improving fast. At 3M, we're piloting a multi-megawatt AEM electrolyzer at our Cordova, Illinois site. Early numbers suggest competitive costs around $2 a kilogram. Now that's getting real. To finish the job, we need focused cost outs across production, storage, and end use. How do we do more? No single company or technology gets us there. We need clear incentives, faster permitting, and harmonized standards to de-risk first-of-a-kind projects. Learn by doing at scale. Standardize, modularize, and optimize the system end-to-end. Make materials the multiplier. Better catalysts and membranes, tougher seals and coatings, smarter thermal and filtration to cut losses and downtime. At 3M, we're looking to collaborate with others on bringing these gains to production, storage, distribution, and end use. So who is 3M? 3M, at our core, we're a materials science company that innovates and creates solutions to power our modern life. Decades of patents in over 49 different technology platforms, which include not only product, but manufacturing and process patents, because we invent and make things. Just a few of the technologies we're applying to our hydrogen energy solutions include ceramics, adhesives, nanotechnology, and vapor processing. And while 3M continues to innovate across industries, we're scaling up in priority markets that require high-performance technology, including energy, data centers, semiconductors, aerospace, automotive, electronics, home improvement, industrial automation, and safety. We're doubling down on energy, solutions for generation, transmission, distribution, and efficient use, supporting industrial decarbonization and resilient infrastructure. Rising demand, especially here in Asia, needs innovation that's safer, more productive, and more affordable. So let's dive into some of the ways you can collaborate with us today. We're applying our material science expertise to address key pain points across the value chain, starting at production. In green hydrogen, precious metals like iridium are a real bottleneck, so we're working on solutions that use less iridium while staying durable under tough duty. And we bring a full library of adhesives and sealants qualified for both PEM and alkaline stacks to keep systems tight and reliable. Further, we're working on materials for automated assembly using our learnings from the automotive electrification world. For high temperature hydrogen production, think steam methane reformer units and solid oxide systems, we lean on our Nextel ceramic fibers and fabrics for insulation, heat shields, seals, electrical protection, and even burner components, helping equipment survive extreme heat and repeated cycling. In the middle of the chain, storage and transport, compression and pumping are critical. Our ceramic seals and bearings are designed for hydrogen small molecule challenges in compressors and corrosive media and alkaline pumps. And for liquid hydrogen, our glass bubbles offer a lightweight insulation alternative to perlite to help cut boil off and improve logistics. On end use, especially high pressure tanks for trucks and buses, we're developing matrix resins that can reduce the amount of carbon fiber needed, lightweighting the system while maintaining performance and enabling thinner tank walls and reducing system cost. The common thread: make components tougher, lighter, and more efficient so hydrogen systems scale with confidence and deliver more with less. 2 quick proof points. Let's make it tangible. NASA was looking for a retrofit that could cut liquid hydrogen boil off, and Hyundai's shipping arm, KSOE, asked us about liquid hydrogen storage tanks for ships. NASA asked a simple question: how do we reduce boil off from a legacy storage tank without rebuilding it? We help retrofit the insulation with 3M glass bubbles. Over more than half a decade, NASA's publications report a 44% reduction to boil off. It's a clear proof point that a materials upgrade can deliver immediate savings and reliability at scale. And with Hyundai's shipping arm, KSOE, we're partnering to build and test insulation modules for large liquid hydrogen tanks using 3M glass bubbles. aiming for better thermal performance and easier construction. The joint work runs from lab to approvals, installation and workability evaluations, demos, and classification, so the system is ready for real-world minus 253 degrees C service. It's a building block for emerging liquefied hydrogen supply chain supporting large capacity carriers and reliable cross-region logistics. The takeaway? The right partners turn material breakthroughs into systems-level gains. So in conclusion, let's work together to build a better, smarter, safer future. Please scan the QR code to find out more or to contact us at 3M. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much for the interesting presentation. 네, 고맙습니다. 네, 이 에너지 전환에 있어서 Material Science, 재료 과학이 어떻게 혁신을 가속화하는지 그 방안들에 대해서 아주 자세히 발표해 주셨습니다. 네, 이어지는 순서로는 에어 리퀴드의 바이스 프레지던트이신 얼윈 펜포니스님께서 수소 모빌리티 활성화 그리고 유럽과 한국 사례를 중심으로 해서 발표해 주시겠습니다. 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to be here today in the opening day of this World Hydrogen Expo. My name is Erwin Penfornis. I'm the Vice President for Hydrogen Mobility at Air Liquide. And today my objective is to share with you some lessons learned in the development of the mobility markets in two key regions, here in Korea, of course, and in Europe. Before getting there, a few words about Air Liquide. So we are a company which is almost 120 years old. We've been present in Korea for more than 30 years. We are a 30 billion company, roughly present in 70 countries. And our mission is to deliver gas and services to a variety of industries, as well as in the healthcare area. Getting closer to hydrogen, hydrogen is a molecule with which we are extremely familiar. We've been supplying hydrogen to various customers over the last 60 years. So we are actually developing technologies over the full value chain, from production, storage, transport, and distribution. And as you see today, we are delivering day in, day out, more than 1 million tons of hydrogen per year. With significant teams involved across the world and more than 200 production units. We are targeting today two new markets, and I think Mark just before touched on it. First, the hard-to-abate industries. Historically, hydrogen has been used to supply refineries, chemical sectors, and we need to decarbonize those sectors today, as well as a new sector like steelmaking that can decarbonize through hydrogen, and mobility, and I would say here more specifically I'd like to focus on heavy-duty mobility. So no need to convince you. I think if you are here, probably you're sharing the conviction that hydrogen has a key role to play to decarbonize transport. But I think it's interesting to look at those different transport sectors, and hydrogen can truly be a solution to decarbonize both road, rail, maritime, and aviation. And actually, if you look at it closely, it is the only energy carrier that can do so. You are not going to use battery in order to propel large ships or aircraft in the future. And vice versa, there are some derivatives like ammonia that you wouldn't use for road trucking. So we really see hydrogen, and again, as a reference to a previous 3M presentation, liquid hydrogen is a typical fuel that can be developed for all those markets. So before going to Europe and Korea, as I said, I just wanted to paint a bit of a state of play of the development of heavy-duty markets today in the world. So you see here the number of vehicles which are deployed in the different regions. So we clearly have Korea and China, I would say, leading the pack today as far as market momentum. We have Europe being today at a decisive moment. We are really at a moment where we see policymakers and the market makers that are hesitating between battery and hydrogen to decarbonize the heavy-duty truck sector, having some very short-term and mid-term milestones to meet the CO2 reduction mandates. And you've got, of course, the US, which now, with a different political context, doesn't have right now the right policy support in order for the market to develop properly. And so if I come back really on the one that are leading the pack, as I mentioned, China and Korea, and this is where I will go then more in detail. The reason for this success is really the combination of smart strategies, smart national strategies, very sophisticated support policies, and of course it always calls for having the right industrial leaders to be able to then put this in motion. And I think we definitely have those ingredients in Korea and in China. In Europe, as I will show in a second, we definitely have the industrial players lined up, but we still have a lack of pragmatism in the policies that are being pushed. So if I go in Europe first, I wanted to illustrate with what we're doing at Air Liquide in this market. We are a leading player over the last almost 15 years in Europe in developing mobility markets. We are present on the full value chain, and I would say we have today, in order to activate, we have to go a little bit further away than what we would do just naturally. The core business of Air Liquide is really to produce and supply hydrogen. And if I start from the left here on the upstream, you see here a nice picture from a 200 megawatt electrolyzer. So the largest electrolyzer under construction today in Europe that we will start up next year in Normandy, in France. And so we have, and that's really part of our DNA, we have developed in partnership with Siemens Energy dedicated PEM electrolysis technology. We have a gigafactory which is now supplying the stacks, the modules for those plants. And we have in total, beyond this Normandy project, close to 700 megawatts of electrolyzer projects under development, not just for mobility. This is, of course, also to supply sectors like refining. But in the case of mobility, we really had to go one step downstream in the value chain. You know probably the challenge of developing, investing hydrogen stations, sufficient hydrogen stations and reach cost competitiveness. And we've decided to partner with some energy players like Total Energies, and we created a joint venture like Teal Energies, which is dedicated to investing stations along highway corridors in Europe. We are doing the same thing in Germany with H2 Mobility, with another pool of partners. And we also created with Toyota in particular and Total Energy in Paris, a company called iSetco. They are not for heavy duty, but intensive fleets of passenger cars in a taxi activity. And I would say if I continue a little bit more downstream of the value chain, what is our day-to-day activity is basically to collaborate with vehicle OEMs, whether it's a Daimler Truck, Volvo, MAN. This is what we are doing permanently in order to synchronize deployment strategies. And now we are going one step beyond, is that as a logistic operator, we are starting to incorporate some hydrogen trucks in our own fleets. And so we've just announced in Netherlands the incorporation of the first trucks. So this is, you're seeing here an MAN, internal combustion engine hydrogen trucks. And this is going to grow from now on in our fleets. So you see quite a lot of activity. Everything would sound pretty good, but actually we see that those efforts are not paying off at this point of time. Despite the fact that Europe has implemented some decarbonization mandates, as I said before, despite the fact that you've got probably all the key OEMs that are lined up, despite the fact that we've got all the technologies which are today ready. I saw it from electrolysis all the way to hydrogen stations and vehicles. And why? Is that we have the right ingredients, but we don't have yet the right recipe in Europe. And also, it's not despite, I would say, willingness to do well from the authorities, but probably a lack of pragmatism of what is needed in order to activate the market. And I think we should always remember one thing, is that customers are not ready to pay more to decarbonize. So in this market, if we want to be able to start ramping up volumes of vehicles, station and hydrogen, we need to be able to reach from the first day the TCO that diesel solutions or battery solution as another zero emission technology are providing. And today, when we look at the various incentives we have in Europe, whether it is on the hydrogen supply chain all the way to stations or on the vehicles, we are not closing the loop. And so the total cost today for end users is typically 50% higher than what they would pay for diesel. And this is how you remain stuck at the demonstration level. And I believe later on today you'll see some also presentations on China. And there you see in China a totally different approach that is paying off. So a couple things that we need to do in Europe there. First, I would say, is mobilizing ourselves. And this is what we did earlier this year with more than 40 companies, the leaders in Europe in the development of this market, is to federate our efforts and go to governments to be very clear on what we need. And I'll just give a couple examples. Hydrogen, if you want to be able to reduce the cost in the initiation period, you need to take hydrogen where it exists already at the cheapest cost. And so you need to be ready, in this case, to accept a fossil-based hydrogen, like it is the case here in Korea or in China, and this is how you can reduce the cost. You need to be able to subsidize the purchase of vehicles. Of course, the first series of vehicles, because we're talking about hundreds of vehicles, are too expensive. And this you need to be able to initiate until we reach a few thousand. So with this pool of companies, with this alliance, we've developed a market activation strategy. We've formulated a few very clear asks about what are those support policies, how you should synchronize the support for stations and vehicles. And now, these days, we're working with the European Commission, with the different governments in Europe in order to get this implemented urgently. If I move to Korea and talking about good policy support, I would say here we're touching the benchmark. This week, we were meeting with a number of CEOs of the Hydrogen Council, reviewing a little bit the efficiency of the different national strategies across the world, and it was obvious that Korea stands out, actually. Even if Korea has got into the development of hydrogen, as you know, not more than 6-7 years ago, there is a very clear strategy, and when it comes to mobility especially, we see the very right instruments, the right tools that are used all along the value chain, as you can see at the bottom of the slides, subsidizing or supporting the supply chain items like filling centers, trailers, the stations, the trucks or the buses or the cars that get on the road. And with all this, yes, you're able to reach diesel parity. And of course, nobody wants to develop a business which stands just with subsidies. So the goal is to be able to phase out those subsidies over time as quickly as possible. But by that time, you've been able to build up volumes, get economies of scale, and get the market going. And you see on the right, it works. We have the largest fleet of passenger vehicles in the world, which is here, of course, under a huge leadership of Hyundai Motor Company. And also a very successful story on buses. There are close to 30,000 buses in Korea, and there is a very strong program to be able to progressively replace the current buses with hydrogen buses at a pace of close to 2,000 buses per year. And as you're going to see in my next slide, this is calling for very active investment along the supply chain. So of course, everything is not perfect neither in Korea. Just to name a couple of challenges, the hydrogen station sector remains today still a little bit too fragile. It is relying especially on some consortiums of companies that have been purposely built, like Cohygen and HyNet. And the financing of such companies is a recurrent issue because there is no today viable business case or sufficiently viable business case for those stations, as long as they don't get out of the what we call valley of death. And of course, the next battle also in Korea is to initiate a truck deployment, but again with an OEM like Hyundai, I think we are well positioned. So I will just finish here with an illustration of what we are Liquid were doing in Korea. So I would say similar recipe than what I showed in Europe. We're working very closely with local OEMs, and so here it's a bit easier. It's with Hyundai. And upstream in the value chain, we have also pulled, for example, with a company like Lotte Chemical. And so you see on the left side a filling center that we've just inaugurated a few weeks ago, which is the largest high-pressure filling center in the world, where we are actually filling some trailers at 450 bars in order to be able to significantly reduce the transportation cost of hydrogen to the stations. And you see those trailers on the right. So these are technologies that we've already developed, and by the way, for more than a decade in Europe. And that's another example of cross-fertilization across various geographies. So maybe just as a closing word, as you see, we are at a crossroad in the field of mobility. The next couple of years could very well be a make or break. We've got everything ready. Now it's really a matter of activating those markets and working in a very efficient manner among industrial players and governments. And so for all the players who are today here in the room involved there, I'm really calling for more coordination there, and you can count on us at Air Liquide to remain very much committed to this. And I thank you very much.
Thank you so much. 네, 고맙습니다. 네, 이 모빌리티에서의 수소 활성화에 대해서 특히 유럽과 한국 사례를 중심으로 인사이트 공유해 주셨습니다. 네, 이어지는 다음 순서로는 H2 페루의 컨설터 테크니코이신 후안 안토니오 구테레스님께서 라틴 아메리카의 청정 수소 생태계 사업 개발 트렌드에 대해서 발표해 주시겠습니다. 모두 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this meeting. Today, I'm going to provide an overview of the status of hydrogen in Latin America, and I will close with a deep view in Peru. First of all, I would like to introduce H2 Peru. It's the Peruvian Hydrogen Association. This association, as well as many others in the world, join the companies that are developing this ecosystem. Most of the companies you can see in the screen are very well-known and international companies in energy business, in mining, in industrial businesses, also in the traditional hydrogen production, companies like Linde, Air Liquide. We also collaborate with international associations like H2 Korea. Thanks to H2 Korea for the invitation for this conference. First of all, I would like to start with this very famous slide. You might have seen this multiple times. This is the typical heat map on levelized cost of hydrogen. The red colors is the cheap areas to produce clean hydrogen. The blue ones are the expensive. This is driven by the renewable potential of the world, and it's not a secret. It's a very typical slide to promote some regions in the world like Chile, south of Peru, some areas in China, Saudi, and many parts of Africa. This is interesting because maybe it's the first thing a country will need to produce hydrogen, a good renewable potential, and this is given by nature. Countries like the Scandinavian ones in Northern Europe cannot increase this because it is given by nature. And Peru is a good country for this. Peru is in the top 5 maybe cheapest countries to produce clean hydrogen, together with Chile in Latin America. The potential is divided in 2 big areas. The north of Peru is driven by wind power. The south of Peru is driven by solar photovoltaic. This is interesting, but it's not enough. This is given by nature and is just the first step. When we go deeper into the hydrogen ecosystem, we have to see what is being developed by the countries, what is human work done in this field. What you can see in this slide is a heat map also, but not of renewable potential, but of work done by the countries in terms of hydrogen strategy, policy, and incentives. We evaluated what is happening in the region. Most of the countries already have a strategy, which is a typical document, most of them produced during 2020, 2021, supported by World Bank, IDB, that kind of international institutions. Then going down into the world developed, we can see that many countries, less than the countries with a strategy, have developed a law. For example, that is the case of Peru, that is the case of Chile, that is the case of Brazil. Less countries have developed a regulation for the law, and just a few countries have right now incentives or direct subsidies. In fact, no countries in Latin America have direct subsidies. What they have is special economic areas like Brazil, or some indirect subsidies or early depreciation models, for example, Brazil. So as we can see in this map, for example, Chile, Argentina, Peru, Brazil, and Colombia are good places to develop hydrogen projects in the country, in the region. However, when we see the list of potential projects bigger than 100 megawatt electrolyzer capacities, we see that none of them are reaching FID yet. Most of them have some conceptual engineering phases covered. Less still have some FEED or pre-FEED phases. And this is interesting because even having a good renewable potential and even having a regulation and some incentives, projects are not reaching FID. This is because the region, and I think the entire world, have 5 barriers to hydrogen development. First of all, the lack of market demand and bankable contracts. It's very hard to get off-takers for hydrogen right now. And even very major projects with very good conditions, like the ones being developed in Port of SM, are suffering to get the off-take agreements because ammonia and hydrogen, but ammonia, which is the molecule that is going to be traded from Latin America, is a commodity depending on the natural gas price. And getting a long-term contract for this new kind of ammonia is very difficult. The second barrier for the hydrogen development in the region and why the projects are not getting the FID is the regulatory gaps. Hydrogen is a complete different business, and even being part of some regular energy business is different because the world of renewables, for example, just needed to cover the production, but in this case, we have to take care of the production and the demand and many pieces of infrastructure that are needed in the middle. The third barrier is infrastructure and grid limitations, and grid is key. Projects with good renewable potential are commonly disconnected. The area where the power is, and the ports, for example, or the areas with industrial hubs to produce the molecules. And the answer to this is grids. Grids are to be developed, and countries like China are being very good with this, are developing robust power grids to bring the energy when to where it is needed. And the fourth one is high cost and competitiveness. There is no secret that ammonia right now could cost between 700 to 1,000 US dollars per kilogram, while the regular gray ammonia is in the order of 200 or 300 US dollars per ton. So this is a premium molecule that needs to be put in value, no, and collocated in a different market. However, there is a barrier still. And the last one is technical and social challenges. Social consultations are key for the developing of renewable projects in countries like Peru or the whole Latin America region. And it's very important to involve the communities in the project development in the very early stages. That are the barriers, but something needs to be done. And in this field, we identified that Peru has some strengths to tackle these barriers. One of them is the macroeconomic stability. The second is the experience with natural gas business. The third one is experience with renewable hydrogen production. One of the oldest plants in the world is in Peru. I'm going to explain later. And the fourth one is a mining sector. 30% of the power consumed in Peru is consumed by the mining industry. And this could be a very interesting off-taker since it is very energy-intensive industry. Talking about macroeconomic stability, Peru is one of the most stable countries in Latin America, and this is because of the rules. No? Here you can see three different indicators of this macro stability in the country. The reason because of this is the rules. Even being not the most politically stable country in the area, the economic sector is divided and is ruled in a different way. Because of that, Peru has one of the best economic growth in the area, and not just one of the best economic growths in 2024, but also a sustained economic growth. Peru is ranked as the second best risk country in the region because of what I'm telling you. The rules are very clear for the investment and for the interest rates establishment. And the third one is the lowest inflation rate in the region, which is a very valuable macroeconomic index. Peru has experience in developing a new industry like natural gas. You can see in the chart, in the upper chart, that in 20 years, natural gas has increased a lot in Peru. And this is interesting because of two different reasons. First of all, because there is some infrastructure that could be used for this new hydrogen ecosystem. But the second one is the business ecosystem that this natural gas industry has given to Peru. One of the most advanced projects in Peru in terms of engineering is done by a Japanese company who is already buying gas in Peru and is looking for new sources of gas, but not natural gas. They want to switch from natural gas to e-gas. So they are studying the south of Peru to produce synthetic methane and to use the same infrastructure and the same value chain that they have established today to keep buying gas in Peru and using the maritime routes to Osaka. In the third strength we consider Peru has is the experience with renewable hydrogen production. As I told you in the beginning, one of the oldest green ammonia plants in the world is in Peru. It is in operation since 1965, and it has 25 megawatt of electrolysis producing ammonia and then ammonium nitratum as a mining explosive. This is green because in the beginning it was fed by hydropower, and right now it's no longer fed by hydropower, but the company operating this plant has a green PPA. So the energy fed to this electrolysis is 100% green. So this is experience that should be put in value in Peru. The fourth strength is the mining industry, and this is very important because of the border adjustment mechanisms that are demanding the companies to reduce the carbon footprint of the minerals. And these have also two sides. No? In one hand, hydrogen could serve as a decarbonizer molecule for the industry, but also the minerals produced in Peru could be part of the value chains of the energy transition. I would like to close this intervention, this panel, with the presentation of this concept. As you may know, hydrogen demands a lot of ingredients to be in place to create successful projects. Renewables, in the beginning, just needed land and grid connection. Right now, we need to produce hydrogen, water, and in order to export the molecules, we need some infrastructure, we need some permissions. Ammonia is a very special molecule and should be handled with very careful techniques. So the ingredients should be put in place, and we want to do this in Arequipa. We are aiming to establish a hydrogen hub in Arequipa in the same way that Brazil is doing this in Porto Pecém. The idea is to establish a hub with a multiple producers using shared infrastructure to collect the molecule, to bring it to the port, using shared storage infrastructure to put the molecule in ships and to export. Porto Pecém in Brazil is intended to serve the European market because of the geographical position they have. Arequipa is intended to serve Asia, mainly Japan and Korea. Japan because, as you may know, Japan and Peru have a very old relationship and friendship. This work is being advanced right now. The UK government is supporting this effort, and right now we are doing a governance study in order to map the stakeholders and to create a roadmap to develop this hydrogen hub and to guarantee that everything will be in place when it should be set in place. Well, in addition, I wanted to close with this slide talking about what Peru is doing. Peru already have a strategy and a roadmap with some optimistic targets to be covered. We are not sure that we will cover those targets, but at the end, the ambition is set in place. We are also developing some technical work, harmonizing policies and safety standards to prepare the regulation to be ready, no? when the projects arise. In addition, we are advancing with the regulation. As I showed you in the previous slides, Peru has already a law in place. The regulation was launched 1 month ago to public consultation and will be finally published during the first quarter of next year. And well, we are doing this kind of interactions. We are trying to connect demand with production and getting the ecosystem ready to produce molecules for the own consumption of Peru in sectors like mining, but also to export to countries like Japan and Korea. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. 네, 좋은 발표 감사드립니다. 이 라틴 아메리카 국가 수소 프로젝트들 현황에 대해서 발표해 주셨는데요. 그 중에서도 페루의 수소 산업 강점, 또 페루가 가지고 있는 비전에 대해서 말씀해 주셨습니다. 네, 이어서 오늘의 마지막 하나의 발표만을 남겨두고 있는데요. 서둘러 만나보도록 하겠습니다. 리파이어의 바이스 프레지던트이신 안드레이 만님께서 동북아시아의 청정수소 생태계 그리고 사업개발 트렌드에 대해서 발표해 주시겠습니다. 여러분 모두 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, H2 Korea, for giving REFAR this opportunity to be sharing with you a bit of story about how the East Asia development of clean hydrogen has been, and particularly recently. When I received this task, I found it very monumental. As you can see here, the hydrogen momentum is gaining traction. As of 2024, there has been more than 61 countries who has published national hydrogen strategies. Northeast Asia, which consisted of primarily China, Korea, South Korea, and Japan, of the hydrogen action, are amongst the first to adopt such strategies and are also independently and collectively at the forefront of the hydrogen movement globally. According to the latest Hydrogen Council report, there has been more than 510 projects that's committed globally, passing final investment decision this year. And out of the 510 projects, about 26% of these projects are in these three countries, Korea, Japan, and China. Of the $110 billion committed capital that are fueling these projects, about 35% of the 110 billion are in these three countries only. So let's take a closer look what's happening in this region. In China, due to its size and prowess, it is leading the pack with 33 billion out of 110 billion committed in China. In these four segments, most of it go into renewable hydrogen production, a little portion go into low carbon, and then distribution and end users are sharing the fair share of the total investment. Comparatively, Korea and Japan, the investment together is about 6 billion committed capital going toward 2030. And we're seeing that nearly almost all investments are committed in distribution of hydrogen and the end use. China is leading the committed renewable energy capacity and has the largest and growing domestic demand to diversify away from the dependence of fossil fuel-based energy source. Most of the offtake in China is in the chemical sectors, and there are policies that are contributing to a rapid growth, which we'll get into a bit later. For Korea and Japan, there are very good policy-backed low carbon hydrogen demand, which about 75 of those subsidies are going into coal-firing ammonia in power plants that are supported by Japan's CFD policy and Korea's CHPS policy. The limited domestic supplies in Japan and Korea for renewable and natural gas resources will create and command an import opportunity for majority of the hydrogen or hydrogen derivative supply going into this region. And in addition, there's a very strong momentum in fuel cell and vehicle technology deployment in all of these three countries. So for China, the hydrogen strategy is simultaneously about supply and demand. As of 2025, China has a 56% share of the global operational renewable hydrogen capacity. Of the renewable hydrogen, which is the green hydrogen, China is doing at 55% of the global total. And of the low carbon hydrogen, blue hydrogen, China is about 6% of the global total. And again, globally, we have 35 gigawatt of renewable hydrogen capacity that has passed final investment decision, and the country has about 55% in that. It is the key region in operational renewable growth, which equals the rest of the world combined. And the primary electrolysis technology used in China still is alkaline, accounting to be about 80% of the alkaline equipment shipped to be installed in this country alone. The average size project in China is also outpacing the rest of the world. And here I have two examples to share with the audience here. One is a 20-ton per annum hydrogen production project in Xinjiang province. And this one is a 20,000 tons of green hydrogen. And then the one at the bottom is 56,000 tons of green hydrogen production per annum out of Inner Mongolia, produced both out of renewable energies. So that's the supply side of the story in China. On the supply end, on the demand end, China's binding renewable offtake capacity this year also accounts to be a fair share of the global volume, sitting at 35%. And almost entirely of the supply that we have just seen are going into the domestic production. So we have a good supply and demand match. Majority of the offtake sectors are ammonia, which accounts to be about 37%, refining, and power. All of these three together make up approximately 80% of the total offtake agreements. And it's due to the energy security and diversification alongside with a strive for technology leadership and in a growing market, which is driving China away from the fossil fuel-based economy to gain independence to gain more of independence in energy security. China's 15th five-year plan, and that's the new five-year plan, which will be announced next year, it is expected that it will continue to support hydrogen as a pillar to decarbonize industry, energy, as well as transportation. So that's the Chinese story of supply and demand. And let's look at Korea and Japan. The power policies are very specific, and it's directing funding toward decarbonizing power via co-firing of ammonia in coal power plants first. So Korea's CHPS program is driving the usage of ammonia in the power plants already. And it has set a very high aspirational goal for decarbonizing power. It's aimed to create a dedicated clean energy market by 2028, driving technology transition by blending 20% of ammonia in coal-fired power plants as transitional measures. And it's through this effort, it's aimed to establish global leadership in hydrogen value chain, aiming for 50% of self-sufficiency in clean hydrogen supply by 2030. And here are some of the plants. The Hanwha power plant, as well as POSCO, Pohang plants are already using this CHPS portfolio funding to support. In Japan, similarly, ammonia is now desired for coal-firing power plants under the contract for difference policy in Japan, which has 3 trillion yen, approximately about $20 billion US of support for these efforts. And this program will primarily rely on imported low-carbon hydrogen, and right now the designated locations are from the Middle East, and as Australia being the primary, due to its limited domestic clean hydrogen or ammonia production facilities. And the first round of this 20 billion budget of the CFD program is progressing with oversubscription. So this is going quite well in Japan, and here are some of the examples in Japan that's benefiting from this program. So that's on the bigger hydrogen side of production, going into more of the volume offtake of industry and power. But very interestingly, in this region of the world, we're seeing something very special. All three countries are unlocking hydrogen society through hydrogen mobility. And the initial segment of road mobility have materialized in all of these three places, Korea, Japan, and China, independently with their own characteristics. And across the key hubs of mobility in these three regions, we have companies that are forming very strong partnerships to advance infrastructure and unlocking the logistic demand. As a comparison of about Q3, so quarter 3 of this year, as we stand, the ownership of fuel cell vehicles in Japan and Korea and China all together is more than 80% of the global volume. And also in this region, we have the most refueling station and the densest network of refueling station in the world. Majority of the Korea and Japanese product are the fuel cell vehicles and passenger vehicles to begin with, sold globally, and with the case of Hyundai, very welcomed in Korea. But the trend is for these countries to all be looking at commercial vehicles, as Irvin had also mentioned earlier. So Japan, ongoing focus for Japan is to concentrate on demand to drive the hydrogen mobility forward. Japan has a revised hydrogen strategy, which now identifies 5 core strategic regions to create clean hydrogen demand and strengthen the domestic industry. So these are the 5. These are on the map are the 5 regions, and Tokyo has set a leading example to focus on commercial vehicle, trucks and bus deployment with a target of 600 fuel cell taxis on the passenger car end by 2030. A budget of 42 billion euro have been allocated to support this effort until 2030 through public and private investment. So the layers of subsidy will be enjoyed by vehicle purchase, hydrogen refueling cost, so subsidizing the hydrogen itself, and refueling stations CapEx as well as OpEx. And these are some of the Japanese vehicles that we see in this photo here. In Korea is building a very holistic mobility ecosystem with extremely strong industrial partnership under very good supporting policy here. Announced in 2020, Korea's government was the first to publish a hydrogen roadmap, which has very detailed plan on mobility. 330 hydrogen vehicles by 2030, 660 stations by 2030. And the new plan for the nationally determined contribution, which was just published in November last month, had a newly reviewed target for decarbonizing transportation with a reduction goal by 2035 to reach between 60 and 63% compared to its 2018 emission level, and this is very aggressive. And paired with it, there's over $1 billion hydrogen subsidy just in this year alone, 2025 alone, and about 650 million for just fuel cell purchase and refueling station construction, and this is quite a scale of support. And other subsidies also include operation support, tax reductions, parking fee exemptions, tollway fee exemptions, and so on and so forth. And Korea is doing this with good grounds because South Korea is the country with the highest number of hydrogen vehicles in operation globally, with over 40,000 units deployed, actually 43,000 units deployed. And the government has also announced a target this year to converting 21,000 buses by 2030. Again, very aggressive, and this is a place to watch to unlocking more of a comprehensive hydrogen adoption. And let's look at China. China is dominating the global commercial vehicle market, while Japan and Korea are quite strong on commercial vehicle, China has adopted the route to do just commercial vehicles. China has 5 demonstration cluster cities initiated in 2021, encompassing over 40 cities to enjoy this policy and demonstrate hydrogen mobility. The regions with hydrogen foundation, strong foundation, and heavy-duty vehicle applications continue to receive support throughout the city cluster program. And now we're seeing more of the regional efforts that are coming to support the hydrogen mobility as well. We're seeing toll exemptions for 10 provinces that are cutting the driver's TCO and making this welcomed by the society. And more than 31 fuel cell vehicle buses and trucks are registered and commercially deployed. And China has delivered unmatched diversity in the number of vehicle types, use cases, and the largest network of OEM partnership. The company that I represent, Refire, we have completed over 200 drivetrain prototypes. These are all the examples with OEM partnerships. And by 2025, we shipped more than 10,000 fuel cell systems. Over 8,000 of those fuel cell vehicles with our fuel cell systems inside have already been driven for 350 million kilometers. So we already see the hydrogen society taking shape through mobility. And these are the cases where these vehicles have been used in bulk logistics, city delivery, long-haul deliveries. For highways between Beijing and Shanghai, which is 1,500 kilometers, now is a reality with vehicle that can cover more than 700 kilometers in 2 refuels. City buses, tourist buses, and coach buses. Construction services equipments, including concrete mixers, dump trucks, locomotive trains, forklifts, baggage tow trucks for airports. Sanitation vehicles for cities, mining vehicles, as well as some power stationary units. These units can also be used in specific locations, such as ports. Gantry cranes, reach stackers, and yard trucks are already helping port to decarbonize through hydrogen. And the same technology is also used to enable battery electric mobility by offering off-grid supercharging to the advancement of the adoption of battery electric vehicles on highways and on places where the grid is insufficient to support. So the phases have been the first policy-driven, and through that, we have gotten to 30,000 vehicles with all the examples that I've just presented to you. And now we're transitioning into a phase where the support does not need to come so heavily from the government. We're looking for low-cost byproduct hydrogen, which are economically enough so that without subsidy, these vehicles can already be affordable by the companies. And going forward, we're looking at market-driven phase, which connects what we just learned about the production of green hydrogen, but tying these use cases together with those source of hydrogen so that without subsidy and with actual anchoring use cases, this is a reality. And this is one of the examples that we're chartering. This is a 100,000-ton green hydrogen production project in the northwestern part of China. It's a 3-gigawatt project where we're producing our own hydrogen. It's a greenfield project. And that hydrogen will be used to fuel the local chemical complex. And about 45% of that will be used for the local mobility applications of heavy-duty vehicles, trucking the goods produced locally to elsewhere. So my last slide is, we are already forging East Asia, and particularly East Asia, sitting on the backdrop of an international hydrogen community. And it's particularly with the consortium support of a partnership in these 3 countries, individually and collectively, that we're able to achieve what we have achieved. And this is thanks also to the consistent political support and the legal framework. We still have challenges and as well as opportunities ahead, and it takes us to really fortitude our R&D capabilities through core technologies and product. We have to build our expertise, spanning from demonstration projects that's subsidized by the policy to truly commercial applications. Look for the places where commercial TCOs can stand. Develop hydrogen systems and business models that are tailored to each regional characteristics. And the fourth one, extensive international collaboration and regional collaboration within the industry is a necessity. And with that, I thank you for your time and thank you.
Thank you so much. 네, 좋은 발표 감사드립니다. 한국과 중국 그리고 일본 사례를 중심으로 해서 성정수소에 대해서 알아봤습니다. 네, 여러분 이상으로 WHE 2025 리더십 앤 마케팅 컨퍼런스 준비된 모든 순서를 여기서 마치도록 하겠습니다. 다시 한번 오랜 시간 동안 배석해 주신 모든 분들께 깊은 감사의 인사드리고요. 12월 5일 금요일인 내일은 지금 이 공간인 6C홀과 3층 회의실에서 수소 분야 핵심 기술 정책 시장 요소를 상세하게 다루는 심층 분석 세션인 하이드로젠 딥 다이브가 진행되니까요. 여러분들의 많은 관심 부탁드리겠습니다. 그럼 저는 여기서 인사드리도록 하겠습니다. 모두 조심히 돌아가시길 바랍니다. 안녕히 가십시오.